Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to another episode of our WCN Fluencer podcast. I'm your host, Christopher McClellan, and I am excited to welcome a new podcaster on the Whole Care Network, Emilia Bourland. Emilia, we're actually doing it. We've been talking about it, and here we are.
Yes, it's finally happening. I know all of the folks who I started recording with, like almost 8 months ago, are going to be really relieved that this thing is actually happening, that the podcast is actually launching. And I am super excited about it too. So thanks for having me here today to talk about it.
We are excited to have you a part of the Whole Care Network, but you're much more than just podcasts. I mean, you're an occupational therapist, and tell our listeners and our viewers, as I have to get used to saying our viewers, because now we're going big time with video, about your work and Higher Standard Caregiver Training. I'm excited to have this a part of the Whole Care Network.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited about it too. And like you said, the podcast is really only my latest effort at trying to bring a greater understanding of the healthcare system and of resources to family caregivers. But my kind of journey into this started just with my 10 plus years of clinical experience as an occupational therapist. And during the course of my clinical practice, I've worked pretty much everywhere that you can find adults in our healthcare setting. I've worked in skilled nursing. I've worked in memory care. I have worked in ICUs, acute care, inpatient rehab, home health, home modifications. If you can think of it, I've probably been there and worked there. And so what that led to, and what all of that experience really enabled me to see, was this big whole picture of our healthcare system and the ways that it works and the ways that it doesn't work. And one of the huge gaps that I just kept running into over and over and over again was the lack of access to really high quality training and knowledge for family caregivers. I mean, the fact is that if you're getting any kind of training at sort of the point of service, the point where your loved one or your family member is being treated, or they're about to be discharged from an area of service, then you're very, very fortunate. But even in that case, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of hands-on time. And that's simply because of the major constraints that are being placed on providers in our healthcare system. It's not because people don't want to give you more. It's just because it's very, very difficult. And then the fact is that when you go home and you are home with the person you're caring for, that looks really different than a rehab does. It looks really different than a hospital setting does. And your loved one, the person that you're caring for, is going to continue to change over time. So that person who came home with you, who was discharged with you, in 1 or 2 months may, or 6 months or a year, they may look really different than they do now. So what I realized is that there's this gap, and there's this need for family caregivers, people caring for folks at home, to have access to high quality information that is reliable, so they're not going on Google and finding, Lord knows what kind of information, so that there's some place where they can go and they can say, oh, okay, this is the problem I'm having. This is how I can do it in order to keep myself safe, in order to keep the person that I'm caring for safe. And for me, the safety of caregivers and the health and well-being of caregivers is absolutely as important as the health and the safety and the welfare of the people that they're caring for. And these things are just inherently connected in my mind and in my experience. So I built Higher Standards Caregiver Training basically with this goal of making this high quality information very, very accessible, making it something that people could consume when they needed, when they wanted it, in a way that worked well for them and in a way that was extremely affordable. And so that's really what Higher Standards Caregiver Training is all about.
I just love the connection here because you get it. You get that the need, especially as it relates to the caregiver taking care of themselves. And I'd be interested to know, because we hear this term self-care all the time, how important that is. But I'm wondering, and I'm kind of off the cuff here, but self-compassion as it relates to caregivers. Having that ability to kind of just take good care of themselves. I get the sense that that's one of your main focal points.
Yeah, I think that if we want to be able to care for someone else, we first have to be able to have care and compassion for ourselves. That doesn't look the same for every single person, right? I don't think that there's a set correct way to do that. But, as a healthcare provider walking into difficult situations, stressful situations every day, the way that I was able to do that and to not burn out and to feel, in fact, lucky to be there every single day was by having compassion for myself and empathy for myself and my own situation. Right. And it's only by allowing me to have that for me that I could then pour that into other people. And I think that that's got to be a similar experience, of course, understanding that the parameters of caring for your own loved one, for your own friend, for your own family member, for your own partner, understanding that that is a really different set of experiences than being a healthcare provider and walking into a hospital room. But I think that there is some central facet of just humanity that requires us to, if we want to have compassion and empathy for others, we have to have compassion and empathy and care for ourselves. And so that's something that, even though a lot of the skills that I teach they're really practical, hands-on care skills. How do you transfer someone correctly? How do you care for someone at bed level correctly? But that's always kind of worked in as an underlying part of the message, is that you have to have care for yourself in whatever way that's possible for you, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
That is such a perfect analogy. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And I think with the work that you're doing, you're giving caregivers the opportunity to find this critical information, to find what they need in order to make their caregiving journey just a tad bit easier. Because let's face it, one of the similar things every caregiver experiences is that they usually get involved in the middle of a crisis, that they're not prepared per se, because it's not something that they're used to doing. And with the services that you're providing, you're really giving the opportunity for caregivers to have a head start on their journey.
That's one of the things I'm really excited about, kind of being connected with the Whole Care Network and, bringing this scope of information that I have together with the scope of information that Whole Care Network offers, because it really does recognize that there's not one point or one step in this journey that's more important than another. It also recognizes that there's no single person who has all the answers, that this is a team effort. It's a team journey. And the more that we can be there with the caregivers who are out there, the more that we can be there for each other, the better resources we're all going to be able to provide, and the better even the better those individual resources are going to work, if that kind of makes sense. Like, I'm a big believer, just as an occupational therapist and as a person in general, that we need to look at big pictures. We need to look at things holistically. And so that's one of the reasons I'm just really excited to be a part of Whole Care Network, is to not just connect the very practical kind of skills-based things that I do to caregivers, but also help to make sure that folks have connections to the other kinds of resources that they need, the other things that you represent in your pillars of care.
Well, and it's so essential to have resources that are trusted, that are from people that have been in the trenches. Because I believe the best information and referrals comes from those who have been through the journey and understand. And that's what we've tried to create here on the Whole Care Network. And that's another one of the exciting reasons why I'm just thrilled to have you join the network with your resources, with your background in occupational therapy. But I'm just going to have to digress again here, Emilia. We have to let the cat out of the bag. We want to know who some of your guests are on your upcoming podcast.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm really glad you did that. I'm very excited about this. Because again, so the name of the podcast is called The Caregivers Dilemma. And it's called that because it's just recognizing that caregivers get put in this like awkward position, in these almost untenable positions all the time, where they're asked to take this monumental task and just do it with next to no information, with like nothing. So that's the name of the podcast, and that's why. And it's really all about connecting people with reliable resources, with people who have been there before, and also just creating a platform where caregivers can share their experiences and share their journeys and find a way to kind of connect like that. So I have actually one of my very first guests. Her name is Sandra. She is actually a family caregiver herself. And that episode it's really just about her sharing her story. I think it's one that lots of people can relate to. And she's truly an extraordinary person. It was an absolute honor to have her take the time from her incredibly busy day to talk to me about her experience and her family's experience. So definitely look out for Sandra's story when you are looking out for Caregivers Dilemma. I also have a fabulous guest. Her name is Danelle LeBlanc. She owns an organization called Caregiver Transitions, and she not only is a family caregiver herself, but she also has tons of resources available to people to help them through the transitions that all caregivers go through as they transition from one stage of care all the way to the end of their journey. And she's got she has a very powerful story, and she has some very powerful and incredible resources. So I'm really excited to introduce her. I've got folks talking about the difference between home health and home care, and how you can...
Very important.
Oh, yep. So important. And how those two things can work together and should work together, and what some resources are if you are trying to pick a home health provider, or how to go and do that, or a home care provider. There's already a lot of super valuable content in there. And my goal is just to keep that growing, keep it building, and have this be something that, of course, is interesting to download and to listen to, but also something that's really, really valuable for folks as well.
And fun.
Yes.
There is such a thing called fun in caregiving.
Yeah, we have to find that, right? We have to find our joy wherever it is.
And that's one of the reasons why we do all these podcasts and video podcasts now, and sharing this information, because as we all know, one of my pet phrases, it's through story sharing where diversity meets the road to collaborate on a common cause. And our common cause is supporting caregivers before, during, and after caregiving ends. And Emilia, you are certainly doing that. And so I know we don't have an exact date of debut for your podcast, but it's coming soon. All the episodes are recorded. But let all of our listeners and viewers know how they can find out about more information about the great work that you're doing.
Well, definitely check me out on the Whole Care Network. I am, if it's not there yet, I think pretty shortly there is going to be a page for Higher Standards Caregiver Training on the Whole Care Network. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you'll have a featured microsite on the Whole Care Network, wholecarenetwork.com/higher standard caregiver training.
Awesome.
Yes. You can find Emilia and all her great work. And you have your own website as well.
I do, yeah. So you can also check out www.higherstandardscaregivertraining.com. It's a great place where you can directly access some of those different hands-on skill-based trainings that I have available. It's really simple to do, and you can keep it as simple as you want. You can take a look at the library there. You can take one course at a time. You can have a bundle of courses, or for folks who want to become members, you can access every single thing that is available on the website, as well as access live monthly trainings that I provide to my caregivers, where we all log on together as a community, and we answer questions and we talk through things, and it's just a great place for people to come together. So it is really simple to use and simple to do, so you can definitely check out www.higherstandardscaregivertraining.com. And you can also find me on Facebook. You can find if you search for Higher Standards Caregiver Training. That's a page that's available on Facebook, and you can find me on LinkedIn and even YouTube as well. Just go any of those places. I know
she's everywhere.
I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere. So if you go any of those places, you search Higher Standards Caregiver Training, you will see the logo pop up, and you can follow it, like it, share it, and there's lots of information and resources there for you.
Well, Emilia, thanks so much for joining me today. Thank you for being a part of the Whole Care Network, and you are certainly a WCN Fluencer. We'll look forward to seeing you down the road.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much.